My very first cruise ship sailing was on the Celebrity Beyond in April of 2022. That is not true. It was definitely on the Edge. I don't even think the Beyond was sailing in April of 2022. I believe it came out late in 2022. My bad. Many people told me that I created such a high standard or high bar for myself by cruising on an Edge class series of ships. The ship was amazing, it was beautiful. I was really excited when we decided to book the Beyond for 9 nights. I want to take a few moments to talk about the Celebrity Beyond and how that ship differed and how it was perhaps better and maybe not so much compared to the Edge. For us, the first difference came in the fact that we had to board the ship from Terminal 18 in Port Everglades versus Terminal 25. I mentioned that in my initial review of the Celebrity Beyond experience. And the reason we cruised from Terminal 18 versus 25 is because the Ascent was beginning its first service that day. And naturally, the new flagship would get the better terminal. Despite the fact that we cruised from Terminal 18, it was still a mostly pleasant and quick experience. I think the most confusing part was there wasn't a whole lot of signage on where to go. And so we ended up going toward the bathroom area on the outside of Terminal 18 versus going to the entry point. But we also did that because our check-in time was 11:30 and we arrived around 10 to 10:15. And so I didn't want to necessarily jump in front of people who perhaps had a 10, 10:30 or 11 o'clock check-in time. When we arrived at Terminal 18, we quickly went through the process for security, checking our documentation, and then we were led to a seating area upstairs. Now, I will say that those who perhaps had suite access, it looks like they had food and things available to them, but they were seated right next to us. And I perhaps would have been a little frustrated that my experience wasn't as nice or premium because we were literally in one giant room together. And they had some stanchions and ropes that kind of separated the space, but that was the only thing that separated the space. Once boarding began, it was pretty quick. We had two gangways that led us onto the vessel. We decided to go to the second one, which led us right onto into the art gallery area of the ship, or more forward of the ship, or more forward portion of the ship, which was fine because our suite was, or our room actually was room 7130, and so we were at the front of the ship. And so what that allowed us to do is we got on, we went right to the forward elevator area and the stairs, because we were very familiar with the ship design, having sailed on the Edge 2 times. We walked up to our room, dropped off our bags, admired the room. We were excited that the bed was closer to the veranda, because our last sailing, the bed was closer to the bathroom and the entry to the room, and the sofa or the couch was closer to the veranda, and we just preferred the bed being closer to the veranda. So we were really excited about that. We disinfected the room and left the drawers open so the disinfectant could dry out, and then we proceeded to the martini bar. We've decided to make it our tradition when we sail on celebrity cruises that after we drop off our bags, the first thing we are going to do is go to the martini bar and enjoy a toffee apple martini. It's such an awesome martini. Now, we got there just before it opened, so we were the first ones there. We did have to sit for a little bit. I walked over to guest services to see if the line was long because we also wanted to book some additional specialty dining that night. And when I came back, more people had shown up, and they did decide to start serving us a little earlier than noon. Typical celebrity experience, from my understanding. They're all about service. From here, we went to Ocean View Cafe. Ocean View Cafe is pretty similar to that on the Edge. The most noticeable difference to me is the fact that there's now a bar by the pizza spot of the cafe, which is very convenient, right? I don't spend a lot of time in Ocean View Cafe myself. I may do breakfast there. I never do lunch or dinner there. I will do pizza there if I want a snack or late in the evening. I always get onto the ship thinking I'm not gonna eat a whole lot of food. After I finish dinner, I'm stuffed, I'm bloated. But after I've had a few drinks after dinner and I'm having fun meeting new people, I certainly want to go to Ocean View Cafe to get pizza because I don't want the interaction and engagement to end. So Daniel and I had lunch in Ocean View Cafe We contacted our family members. I talked to my sister, wishing she was on the sailing with us because we had such an awesome time with her last November when she sailed with us on the Edge, which was her first cruise. And then we decided to explore the ship a little more. I really enjoy the differences on this ship. I think the Edge is about 62 feet longer. I'm sorry, the Beyond is about 62 feet longer than the Edge and Apex. And it's very noticeable in the Martini bar, which you can now fully circle the bar, versus on the Edge. That bar is situated up against a wall, which caused you to only have access to it on a few sides. And what's more is, because the bar is situated against the wall, there's a service door on one side of the bar that also limits access and creates some congestion in that area of the ship. So with the bar being fully encompassed, or you're able to fully walk around the bar, fully encompassed by seats and such, it's a much better experience in my opinion. I really enjoy the new Grand Plaza on the Beyond and perhaps the Ascent. It has me really looking forward to our inaugural sailing on the Excel in 2025. Another area where it's noticeable is on the resort deck. There's a lot more seating there, and I think our sailing was at capacity, and there was never a time where I felt like, man, I really wish I had somewhere to sit or there are too many people. At times, the resort deck was really busy, like you would expect, particularly on sea days, but there was never a time where I was like, I wish I had somewhere to sit, or there was never a time where I wish that there was a more quiet or secluded place for me to sit, because I could always find one. On the resort deck, the differences are evident in the fact that there's inset seating on the deck on the side closest to the art sculpture. So on the Beyond, you have the man balancing the elephant on its back. On the Edge, you have the butterfly. The Apex, you have the heart. And I think the Ascent has the octopus, which looks a little weird to me. But there's a lot more seating, and the cabanas, if you decide to rent a cabana on the Edge and perhaps the Apex, the cabanas face a walkway. So it's kind of weird, because if you're walking by and someone has one of those books, it's kind of like walking by first in business class getting on the plane. You feel like you're not supposed to be there, or like you're intruding. Now those cabanas on the Beyond are facing the pool, and so when you walk by that space, oftentimes it's outside of the magic carpet because it's typically situated on deck 14. You just have an art installation on that side of the ship, versus seeing those cabanas with the stanchions and ropes kind of secluded, or the people sitting there watching you look like peasants as you walk by. Some of the other areas that I really enjoyed on the Beyond compared to the Edge is the fact that you have world-class bar and craft social bar. Now, I mentioned in my last video that I didn't spend a whole lot of time in craft social bar, but I went to a world-class bar as often as I could. One, I really liked the two servers there, and two, the drinks that they made were pretty freaking awesome. Now, I think there are a lot of bourbon snobs, and it seems like a lot of the drinks were focused on bourbon. Like, I would oftentimes go, and I would forget every single time, but I would oftentimes go and ask for a drink that was made with Woodford Reserve, and then Daniel would say, "We don't have Woodford Reserve here, you peasant. We're not drinking that." No, he didn't really say that, but that's what it felt like. But then there were other people there that seemed snobbish about the types of drinks that they like, which I understand. The drinks, every drink that I had there was really, really good. I had something like a martini. I think it was called the Azteca. Oh my gosh, it was spicy, it was tangy, it was sweet. It wasn't my favorite drink, and I thought it was weird, but it was also so freaking good that I was like, I'm gonna finish this. I only ordered it the one time, but it was a really, really good drink. And again, the vibes and the experience there were pretty awesome at World Class Bar. And again, as I mentioned, I didn't spend a lot of time at Craft Social Bar. The most time I spent there was on the last night of the sailing. I think Dallas and maybe, I don't know, what team is that in Washington State? Seahawks. I think they were playing. I wasn't paying attention. I was there for the company. There was another time that I spent there, and there was a young guy that was adamant about yelling his political beliefs. I think he wanted me to react. I'm reacting in this moment, but I didn't give him the satisfaction of reacting in that space there. Like, dude, you're on vacation, get a life. But otherwise, those are really neat bars, especially World Class Bar. The bars that I really appreciated, however, the new additions compared to the Edge, are Mast Bar, which is on deck 15, I believe, and the Ocean View Bar, which is kind of beside the pizza spot in Ocean View Cafe. Those are very, very convenient bars. I typically don't enjoy going to Sunset Bar or the Poolside Bar. Just the people there, they're just a little too rowdy for me. But I can always get in and out by going to Mast Bar or Ocean View Bar and getting a drink. Plus, I really enjoyed Shy, the bartender at Mast Bar most times. Shy also spent a lot of time in the club bar, but I really enjoyed interacting with him at Mast Bar on deck 15. Of course, Magic Carpet continues to be one of my most favorite parts of the vessel. I spent a lot of time on Magic Carpet. I only saw 2 bartenders there the entire time, and it was hot, especially on sea days. I never saw them look upset, angry, provide poor customer service, or anything. And so on the last day, of course, our cruise fare did include gratuities. It was before Celebrity made the change in early October, obviously. But on the last couple of days, I went to my room and got a bunch of cash, and I just went around to my favorite bartenders and gave them $10, $15 every time I saw them because they were just so awesome. And those 2 at Magic Carpet, Mast Bar, World Class Bar, things like that, I made sure that I gave them an additional tip because they were just so awesome. I didn't spend a lot of time at any of the other bars. I may have got 1 or 2 drinks from the Poolside Bar. There was one day I think we were leaving Aruba, maybe Curacao. Heck, it could have been Grand Cayman, where the only bar that they were allowed to have open was the Poolside Bar. And I stood there for a long time. And finally, a server came up to me before I even got to the bar and said, "Hey, would you like a drink?" And he took my order there, and then he directed me to sit down, and he brought my drink out to me. Typically, I'm not a fan of the Poolside Bar because I don't think the service experience, from my experience, has been the most pleasant. But that was the opposite of what I was expecting. So kudos to that young man. I didn't catch his name. I didn't write it down. I hope I interacted with him somewhere else and was able to get it and include it in the survey that I sent to Celebrity because he was awesome for having done that. We did specialty dining 5 nights on the ship, but all of the specialty dining was available on the edge. All of the specialty dining that we did. So we did Rooftop Garden 2 nights. We did Le Petit Chef. We did Fine Cut Steakhouse and Eden. All of those were available on edge. Someone suggested when we were signing up for 2 additional nights on the day of embarkation that we sign up for Le Voyage. Daniel and I both, we eat a lot, but we also eat like 8-year-olds. So I think that food is probably a little more elevated than I would appreciate it or enjoy. So quite frankly, I didn't want to pay the cover charge for me to go and not enjoy the food. I'm sure the experience is amazing. We don't eat seafood, so we certainly didn't eat raw on 5. Daniel would get frustrated when we would walk from our room to other parts of the ship, and I would take him by raw on 5. And I'm like, dude, why do you never know we're going to walk by raw on 5? It's raw on 5. If we get off at 5 or walk to 5, you know we're going to the aft part of the ship. We're going to walk by that restaurant. He hates the smell. I think the restaurants, the main dining restaurants, are probably a little different. Certainly some of the chandeliers and fixtures in the restaurants are different. We didn't go into Normandy. I intentionally avoided that one because I'm not a fan of French style food. Remember, I eat like an 8-year-old, but it looked like Tuscan, Cyprus, and Cosmopolitan, very similar to Edge, but perhaps had slightly different fixtures and chandeliers, artwork, and things of that sort. Otherwise, they were pretty similar, quite honestly. Daniel is a huge fan of the artwork in Cyprus, the rock sculpture with the woman with the crown on the head. It looks kind of creepy to me, but it is a really neat experience if that's something that you are into, which, again, I'm not necessarily into it, but I acknowledge that it is cool. The thing that perhaps I didn't enjoy as much as I did on the Edge was Cafe Al Baccio on deck 4. Of course, there's a lot more seating there. It seemed that the seating was more focused on larger groups versus small, more intimate seating. And again, you would find people hogging spaces. I remember being at Cafe Al Baccio one day sitting by myself. Daniel was working on his dissertation, and so I wanted to leave him in the room by himself so he wasn't distracted. And I would just see people come up to other people's tables and just pull chairs away, without asking if they needed those chairs. if they were expecting anyone, and I just thought it was quite rude. It really frustrated me to see that happening. I saw that quite a bit, and I became somewhat territorial, thinking I wish someone would come over here and try to take a seat from where I'm sitting without asking me if I need one of those seats. Of course, no one did, but I also am told that I have RBF, so that could be the reason why no one approached my area and tried to take a chair from me. If they would have asked, I would have been happy to give it to them. I wasn't using it, but just don't come and assume that I'm not gonna have someone joining me. Cafe Al Baccio area wasn't, I don't like the colors as much as I did on the Edge. And again, because the Edge was my first cruise ever, there may be a little bit of nostalgia there for me as well. But I think overall, I do like the changes on the Beyond compared to the Ascent. There was some windows added to the club as well that during the day is supposed to let more light in. We were in playing a game one day and the sun was just beaming on my face. I was like, oh my gosh, please close those blinds. It was too much light. I like the club environment because particularly without the windows open, because it feels like a nightclub any time of day. But I do understand to make the space a little more functional, that being able to open those windows and create a different vibe or experience is beneficial to the ship and the cruise line. Overall, I do find that the Beyond is a nicer and more premium experience compared to the Edge. The Edge is an amazing ship, but also the Edge is 5 going on 6 years old now, and the Beyond is just a year old now. Of course, the Ascent came out last month. It's December 9th right now. So the Ascent sailed for the first time with passengers on the 22nd of November, the same day we left for our 9-night sailing on the Beyond. And I hear the Ascent has a few more niceties and special areas that the Beyond doesn't have. So again, that really makes me look forward to our sailing on the Excel in 2025. Daniel and I are trying to figure out what ship are we going to go on next. Are we going to do the Beyond again? Are we going to try the Ascent? Or are we even going to try another cruise line, which before going on this sailing on the 22nd of November, after hearing all of the complaints and the belief that the quality and experience for Celebrity was going downhill, which kind of was the case from our April 2022 to our November 2022 sailing, the experience was a little less than desirable. I was a little nervous that we weren't going to enjoy this experience, but man, it was so good that I have full faith that our next sailing is going to be as good. So I am less inclined to want to try another cruise line now because Celebrity did impress me, and I think they did work to earn my loyalty and business, at least for the foreseeable future. So we'll see what happens next. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing and liking. I don't post a whole lot of videos, but I do on occasion because I like making videos, not necessarily because I need 1 million followers. But if you want to see what it is I'm doing, feel free to follow, like, and comment. Thanks.